Assalamualaikum. Today I, Muhammad Zarif, would like to present regarding on my research proposal entitled Examining the Fraud Risk Factor that Influence the Occurrence of Asset Misappropriation. One of the most difficult problems facing society today is fraud, which is also putting a lot of strain on the global economy. The increasing incidence of fraud in Malaysia is a significant challenge to companies since it may have a significant impact on their financial stability and image. This is in line with the results of an Association of Certified Fraud Examiners (SFE) survey, in which certified fraud examiners estimate that fraud costs firms 5% of their annual revenue on average. In the context of Malaysia's economy, the PwC Global Economic Crime Survey revealed that 30% of victims were Malaysians and had lost more than £1 million. Asset misappropriation is a major criminal issue in Malaysia. Local media outlets often cover the prevalence of asset theft by staff members, especially managers and directors. These kinds of fraud, commonly referred to as corporate fraud, targets businesses of all sizes and sectors. According to Malaysian law, this fraud is prohibited by the Penal Code 574. For example, a person found guilty of a crime under Penal Code Section 409 faces a sentence of 2 to 20 years in jail as well as a fine and whipping. Penal Code 2014. Even though criminals face harsh penalties, there appears to be a growing national tendency towards fraud over time, as well as international area. Theft of assets is a serious issue in the public sector and is frequently observed in other companies, according to research by local authorities in Malaysia. If the symptom is not addressed, it may not have a major effect, but it will eventually become an incurable condition. Due to the needless expenses incurred, the little installments will ultimately have a significant influence on the financial waste. Asset misappropriation extends beyond straightforward theft to include any action taken by an employee that profit personally at the expense of the company's losses. An organization's finances would be more severely impacted the longer the asset theft continues. High rates of asset theft at the federal, state, and even municipal levels of government were found in the audit report issued by the Malaysian Auditor General over the years. As an example, the audit report revealed that over 300 commodities totaling 1.3 million ringgit were reported missing. Such cases have hindered economic development, decreased the quality of life, wasted resources, and damaged the trust and efficacy of the government. Asset misappropriation include a wide range of actions that led to an employee's personal gain at the expense of the organization's losses, make it more than just a straightforward theft. An organization's finances will suffer more severely the longer the misuse of asset continues. The result of PwC's fraud study consistently showed that asset theft remained the most common kind of economic crime that Malaysian firms face. This outcome is in line with the findings of earlier 2000 polls conducted among respondents worldwide PwC Global Fraud Survey. According to the study, 35% of the respondents said that they will face asset theft in the next 24 months, and 65% of respondents said they had experienced asset theft in the previous 2 years. Furthermore, external parties committed fraud at a rate of 50%, followed by inside parties at 46%. Of those that commit internal fraud, 67% are from middle management, 83% have degrees, and 67% have worked for longer than 5 years. Lack of exposures and awareness on fraud risk factor will lead to the direct or indirect losses of the organization. The research question of this study is: first, is there any relationship between fraud risk factors and the occurrence of asset misappropriation? How does the perceived pressure will lead to asset misappropriation? Is there any relationship between perceived opportunities and the occurrence of asset misappropriation? Does perceived rationalization influence the occurrence of asset misappropriation, and how could the perceived capability affect the occurrence of asset misappropriation? For the research objective is first to investigate the relationship between fraud risk factors and the occurrence of asset misappropriation, to investigate how perceived pressure will lead to asset misappropriation, to examine the relationship between perceived opportunity and the occurrence of asset misappropriation, To determine the influence of perceived rationalization on the occurrence of asset misappropriation, and lastly, to identify how perceived capability could affect the occurrence of asset misappropriation. Fraud diamond theories argues that although the perceived pressure has emerged and, on the other hand, is also supported by opportunities and rationalizations, fraud is not possible without the capability. The cheating theory of the new triangle model explains that there are 4 components that trigger someone to commit cheating, namely integrity, capability, motivation, pressure, and opportunity. The fraud diamond theory is a well-established and widely recognized framework for understanding and preventing fraud. Fraud happens due to the opportunity, pressure, and influence of those who could make it happen. To strengthen shareholders' trust in the firm's balance sheet, the company employs the services of a public accountant to audit its financial statement. This is believed to reduce fraudulent activities. It is mentioned that the fraud diamond variable cannot be studied directly, hence an indirect variable is required. Individual characteristics and aptitudes are important factors in the diamond fraud investigation. Even while possibilities for fraud exist and people may be persuaded to conduct fraud by incentives and justification, to commit fraud, one must be able to recognize these loopholes as opportunities and take advantage of them on a regular basis. Therefore, the chance to commit fraud, the pressure and justification that encourage people to do so, as well as personal aptitude, all play a role. Employees are frequently involved in asset misappropriation, which is the theft of an entity's asset in very tiny and insignificant amounts. Members of the management team who are typically adept at hiding misappropriations in a way that makes them hard to find. Books of account are sometimes tainted by asset theft in order to conceal inconsistencies or shortfalls. The SCFA fraud tree divides asset theft into 7 primary categories. First is inventory. Second, expenditure reimbursement and skimming, check tampering, cash larceny, register repayment, billing, and payroll. Asset misappropriation was categorized by KPMG as theft or the improper use of corporate resources to reap sporadic advantages. According to KPMG, investigation conducted in the Colombia asset theft schemes accounted for 46% of economic criminal activity, corruption charges for 31%, and financial statement fraud for 12%. Furthermore, Market in 2011 reports that in 2008, asset misappropriation recorded 174 instances of fraudsters taking more than $100,000 from their companies. 3 cases that were evaluated and valued less than 100 million USD were determined to be statistically significant. Apart from its prevalence, asset theft is a significant occurrence in the accounting sector, particularly in the auditing domain. The international standards on auditing ISA 240 professional audit standards that are now in effect expand the scope of an auditor's duty for detecting fraud to include asset theft. Perceived pressure can take many forms, including a person's desire to prove that he or she can beat the system, the need to meet deadlines with a good results, especially during times of crisis, objections to the work environment, or a strong professional goal and the desire to reach it quickly. Abdullah and Mansour in 2015 defined pressure as the elements that lead to a deviant conduct. it is an anti-sync state that might cause some people to question moral and ethical standards, which will lead them to begin thinking negatively. Financial or non-financial strain may arise because of personal difficulties, work-related limitations, or other types of stress. The submission aligns with the perspective of Murdoch in 2008, who posited that a social or political pressure arises from the conviction that failing is an inevitability once one reaches a particular position. Opportunity is the second component of the fraud pentagon hypothesis, which is related to a person's capacity to perpetrate fraud. This component has close ties to the organization's internal control system. The greater the anticipated chance for a culprit to commit fraud or misappropriate an asset, the weaker the internal control mechanism. The perpetrator feels that if undiscovered, he or she will be able to devise and execute fraudulent actions. Individuals must view opportunities as genuine, indicating that they are inherently authentic. Therefore, perceived opportunity means that the door is wide open for fraud and there is a control deficiency. In addition, the likelihood that the offender will be caught is extremely low. Therefore, perceived opportunity demands the ability to commit fraud without being discovered. The third component of the fraud pentagon theory is rationalization. These elements help the perpetrator to recognize the fact that one's fraudulent act falls under illegal behavior. However, the individual perpetrator perceives oneself as a trusted individual and rationalize their act. This is a critical aspect which must take place before a crime is committed. Rationalization is the process or by which a person decides what is ethically just or wrong. If he chooses the former, he is probably going to desire to commit fraud. This is a crucial component of fraud theories, as the people who commit the scam typically offer flimsy explanations for their actions. Some of them justify their action with statements such, "I had to steal to support my family, and someone did it, why not me too?" This tends to imply that rationalization raises psychological issues and the fraudster's mindset at a certain moment in time. Capability is the fourth element of fraud triangle theory and reflects a situation where an individual who attempts to commit fraud has the requisite characteristics or skills and capability to perform the act. In 2004, Wolf and Hermanson brought the fraud diamond theory into the field of forensic accounting. They had previously published a critique of Craig's 1953 theory of fraud triangle and expanded upon it. According to these studies, the position may indicate that forensic investigators' efficiency and effectiveness in examining statements of earnings for fraud may be enhanced by their knowledge of the components of fraud diamond. This is because before fraud can be committed, the requirement listed in the fraud diamond must be met. This assumes that a forensic investigator is supposed to be aware of the factors that enable fraudsters to carry out their schemes. From the empirical schema, we can develop hypotheses such there is a positive relationship between perceived pressure and asset misappropriation. Individuals can have very high expectations and target from work, which poses a lot of pressure on them. Organizations may also face certain pressures which trickle down to employees. Based on the new fraud triangle theory, non-financial pressure are reflected in discipline, punishment, and high targets in the company can cause employees to feel pressured. This has an impact on the inability to cope with work so that it has the potential to commit an act of fraud. Second is, opportunity has a significant and positive effect on asset misappropriation. Opportunity can result from circumstances that provide the chance to commit fraud. In fact, many organizations have unwittingly and unwisely provided their employees with various opportunities to commit fraud. Companies that have a weak internal control system will have an impact on the perception of opportunities owned by employees, so that it will increase the occurrence of asset misappropriation. By influencing of situational factors, someone who commits an act of asset misappropriation will be stronger. Third, perceived rationalization positively affect asset misappropriation tendency. When someone can rationalize fraud behavior, he will have a high tendency to commit other fraud. It can be concluded that rationalization is a factor that motivates individuals to commit fraud and is an important factor in fraudulent behavior. Rationalization, therefore, enables perpetrators of frauds to justify their action to make them acceptable to themselves and protect their belief and self-image as honest, innocent person who were unfortunate to be caught up in a critical situation and not criminal. And last hypothesis is perceived capability has a significant impact and positive relationship on the misappropriation of assets. Individuals misappropriate assets when they have the capacity to understand and exploit internal control system, so they are not detected, or if caught, they will confident they will get out of it easily and can be dealt with any stress thereafter. The population of this study is financial sector employees, officials who work in local governments in cities and regencies in Malaysia amounted around 370,000 employees. The sample selection method used is simple random sampling method. A subset of people is selected using a simple random sampling, a statistical technique from a larger group or a population. Every person has the same chance of getting chosen at any point throughout the sampling process because everyone is chosen at random and only by chance. There are several advantages to this approach. First off, because the sample is representative of the population due to the random selection of the individuals, any potential for bias is eliminated. Second, compared to other approaches, creating a basic random sample is simpler. Thirdly, there should be a little possibility of residual bias, such as selection and sampling bias, and the study conducted using the sample should have a good internal and external validity. And finally, it makes it is a trustworthy method of estimating population characteristics by guaranteeing that every element in the population has an equal chance of being included in the sample. The sample size for this study is around 385 financial sector employees. The sampling frame consists of eligible financial sector employees, the target population in this study. The measurement of variables are using by 5 Likert scale and the study setting is non-contrived. Study data were gathered by a survey approach employing a questionnaire. 3 methods were used to gather data online, by mail and through direct surveys. The questionnaire addressed opportunity, rationalization, pressure and also capability, and last, the fluctuating of asset theft tendency and the respondent characteristic. The questionnaire will consist of 7 sections from A, B, C, D and also E and F. Section A of questionnaire asks a question about the demographic characteristic of the respondent, while section B to F had questions on the variable used in the study measured on a 5-point Likert scale. Inferential analysis of the predicted relationship between the study constructs was conducted using the structural equation modeling (SEM) techniques, more precisely the partial least squares structural equation model PLS SEM technique. SEM is a better appropriate for research like this, one that involves latent or unobserved variable, and also is proven to be especially helpful in analyzing complicated model interactions concurrently. For the measurement of variable perceived pressure, it will be measured using 9 questions that were modified from the Zimmerman et al. Statement. It uses a 5-point rating scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree to assess financial strain, having outstanding debts and credit, personal financial losses, impress people with goods, the quantity of object as a symbol of success. Second, perceived opportunity. 9 statements from Sitorus and Scott were included in the questionnaire to gauge the following opportunities: distinct authority and responsibilities, approval and supporting documentation, frequent physical inspection, efficient supervision, precise asset recording, activity influence, and tracking and supervisors. A 5-point rating scale ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree was used to gauge it. Third is perceived rationalization. 9 statements from Sitorus, such kindness purposes temporarily take out loans, low pay at anyone does its sacrifice of an objective, is included in this questionnaire designed to test rationalization. A 5-point rating system ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree is used to quantify rationalization. And lastly, perceived capability. The 7 items on this questionnaire aims to evaluate an individual's skills based on their position. These people often have a solid grasp of the control system and are skilled at taking advantage of flaws to continue fraud. I think that's all from me. Thank you for listening and your attention.